Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us again for our fourth live stream. No, fourth live stream. I am delighted to be back this evening and really looking forward to chatting to my guests. Just a reminder that all of these live streams are part of the campaign for Mr. Wong's Lullaby, which is a Rookie Films production. We're currently in our crowdfunding campaign. We're up to just under £9,000, and we are raising funds to make our short film, which is co-written by myself and Annie Swinburne. So yeah, we're absolutely overwhelmed and blown away by everyone's generosity so far. If anyone who's watching tonight can donate or can back the campaign in any way, please do so. And if you can't, please follow us on social media and spread the word about the film. It's a short film about it's about the everyday battles of ordinary people and the power of simple acts of kindness. It focuses on a woman called Nora, who is a carer for somebody with dementia, for her father. And it's about her journey balancing her life as a carer with her life as someone who's working full time as well. So it's a sort of a poignant, sometimes comedic look at the life of this person. So we hope you'll support it if you can. So I hope you've all had a good week. I hope you all enjoyed International Women's Day yesterday and you performed an act of kindness for a woman in your life. I will bring on my first guest very shortly. My first guest this evening is Andy Whitehouse, who is from Sheffield, and he'll be joined by Kate Trott as well. So Andy Whitehouse is a songwriter with a gift for story and illuminating metaphor. He has performed across the UK, guesting with the likes of Chris Wood and Martin Stevenson. Likened to Nick Cave, Jacques Brel and Leonard Cohen, his songs are performed to a backdrop of ethereal and atmospheric guitar. He usually travels solo, sharing stories of weary pilgrims, drunken sailors, and battered optimists, stumbling through relationships with mysterious saints, magical changelings, and jaded lovers. His songs are characteristically set in times and place of change and uncertainty. Very appropriate for our current state of living, I think. Andy has released several albums fronting the Silver Darlings and a series of singles produced and arranged by multi-award-winning singer-songwriter Chris Wood. In October 2019, he took his Arts Council-supported installation, 1-1, to the celebrated Music Port Festival, and this saw over 50 randomised one-song sets performed to individuals in a prepared space at close quarters. Ironically, for a film that was all about connection, the documentary of that event was released in 2020, the most isolated of years. He has since delivered online events to individual audiences on international platforms. His song Almost Home was recorded as a lockdown project that featured performers all the way from California to Eastern Europe. So we are delighted to have Andy joining us this evening. And without further ado, I will bring him on.
Hey there.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good evening. I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing, Claire?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. How's your day been? Have you been enjoying the intermittent sunshine?
I've not got out into it much. I've been quite busy working, but yeah, it's been all right. I got done the things I was supposed to get done today, so that'll do. That's a win, isn't it?
That's all we can expect of ourselves these days, really. If you're doing that, you're winning.
Yeah.
So Andy, you're going to play a few numbers for us on your own first, and then you'll be joined by Kate a little bit later on. Is that right?
Yeah. We'll just play a few songs. If I've got it right, then I'll do some, and Kate's going to join me, and then we hand it back to you. Yeah, is that right? Yeah,
exactly.
So yeah, I'm just not very good at following instructions, so I have to check regularly.
Don't worry.
So it'll be me for a couple of songs, and then Kate, who fronts the band Charm, is that I also play and will be joining us and singing, which will be fab.
Brilliant. What I'll do, Andy, is I'll hand the screen over to you for some wonderful music, and then at the end I'll bring you both back on and we can have a chat about what you're both up to. at the end of your session. Okay?
Okay, grand. Thanks a lot, Claire.
No worries.
Hey there, good evening. This strange lockdown world where I don't know anybody is watching. I hope somebody is. But welcome to our back room. And this is a song about sunlight. Song about sunlight called Honey Haze. And if you're from Sheffield, then you got a sense that the evening sun comes pouring down the valleys off the Peak District, and it casts everything into really beautiful light, and it's about that. Honey haze over the town, parting rays of the sun going down, soften the slates and kill the leaves. A gift of light for us all, contours caressed along the valley, all along the terrace, rise and fall. Listen not to the dogs barking still. Tonight they won't catch you. Close your eyes, rest your head next to mine. Weak as we are in this light, we're hale and haloed, breathing in the healing rays of honey haze. Honey haze over the town, gown of gold stretching right across from hill and moor to valley floor. But we cannot resist the peace. Open up like flowers and release some of the care that bears us down. So listen not to the dogs barking still. Tonight they won't catch you. Close your eyes, rest your head next to mine. Weak as we are in this light, we're hale and haloed, breathing in the healing rays of honey haze. Raise your face for Phoebe's last gentle kiss. Raise your glass to the light, a drink and a bliss. Why don't you now? Oh, listen not to the dogs barking still. Tonight they won't catch you. Close your eyes, rest your head next to mine. Weak as we are in this light, we're healing, haloed, breathing in the healing rays of honey haze. Thank you. Thanks very much. This one is a song called Almost Home. It's the one that Claire was talking about that we recorded almost accidentally with people from right across from California to Athens in Greece. And if he's watching, this is dedicated to my pal Johan with lots of blessings. Times are hard. So this is for Johan and for anyone else who's having a struggle. It's a song of comfort called Almost Home. It's darkening for sure, it's hard to tell if that head is cloud or land. As this old steamship struggles on with all the speed its engines can command. If you guys working down below can keep on shoveling the coal, keeps the fire burning in the soul. See us safe to harbour and never more to roam. We're almost home. We're almost home. Salt water turned to steam over the furnaces that burn on through the dark. The faces and the forearms of the firemen brief lit by a flame and spark. Oh, if you guys working down below can keep on shoveling the coal, keeps the fire burning in the soul. See us safe to harbour and never more to roam. We're almost home. We're almost home. Well, you can holy storm the decks, say your prayers over the wrecks, cast your wreaths upon the rolling waves. Just lay a finger on the rail, you will find that without fail vibrations from the engine room. Gonna get you home safe soon. So lay under the sky and watch the stars as they go spinning through the night. Those guys are working down below, and in the end it all will be alright. If you guys working down below can keep on shoveling the coal, keeps the fire burning in the soul. See us safe to harbour and never more to roam. We're almost home. We're almost home. We're almost home. Almost home. Right, thank you. Thanks very much. This is time to introduce the star of our particular show, Kate Trott. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can avoid tripping over everything.
Hello.
Something a bit uncomfortable then.
I'm definitely not sure about that.
Right. Okay, so what's next? This is a song about Bill Evans.
Bill Evans reaching for the sound of getting up and coming down. Death and resurrection. And as his fingers touch the keys, somehow he's reaching into me, makes the sweetest of connections. And as the sun comes up again, and as the needle soothes the pain, the notes pour down and they remain like cherry blossom in the rain. The painter crouching in the dark, by firelight he makes his mark, reaching for connection. I step from heat into cool cave, thousands of years in his grave, he waits his resurrection. And as the sun comes up again, the mighty herd replaced by grain, the tribe moves on, but there remains like cherry blossom in the rain. How deep and dark a place must I crawl down into to face my loss and separation? Reaching out awkward and scared in case But as the sun comes up again, with nothing left to soothe the pain, the tears part down and there remain, like cherry blossom in the rain. In the
Kate Trott, ladies and
Andy
gentlemen.
Whitehouse, ladies and gentlemen.
So Claire, I know we started a little bit late, but I think we're kind of probably pushing your schedule now. We've got one more, but I don't want to push your schedule out of shape. So if you can tell me whether we're okay for one more or whether you want us to stop, that'd be absolutely fine.
Go for one more, Andy. I'm sure we won't. The audience won't object for an encore.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And yeah, thanks to Claire for inviting us to do this. It's
Very much so.
yeah, it's a lovely little film project. So please support it as best you can. We're going to try and do that too. And this is a song called Drunken Sailor. So yeah, if you'd like to ask our stuff, chuck a little bit of money into the pot, for the film, that'd be grand.
winter evening, sky was bruised then. She walked her wine glass from the kitchen, found her phone, looked who is calling, sighed and turned down the television, bit her lip as she pressed the button, closed the curtains, closed her eyes, light shone through leaves and airwaves, streetlights, headlights, truth and lies, said how good was to hear her. What would she do with a drunken sailor? Darkness fell, she did not see it. All around she could taste and feel it. His words danced on, told his stories of wasted luck, former glories. What did she need? He could give her. What did she have that she could wear? drunken sailor. Where did he slip? What word awoke her from the breezy dream he had sold her? Was it true? If she kept dreaming into the sunset, they would still be steaming at the quay. The tide is rising, by the morning it will be. The anchor raised, rusting mooring. Well, my rover gone to sea. She tries to speak. Will her words fail her? What will she do? Drunken sailor.
Thanks a lot, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
That was gorgeous. Thank you. I'm just seeing if I can make myself a bit smaller on the screen, but that seems technology's not my strong point. That was lovely. Thank you so much. So,
Thank you.
Andy, as well as your own stuff, you're also part of the Silver Darlings, I believe.
So the Silver Darlings is the band that's put out my music over the last few years. Last album was sort of like a year and a half ago. So yeah, but there's if you look for Silver Darlings, so there's a variety of bands called the Silver Darlings, but one of them is mine.
Right. Who knows what you'll come up with then if you go searching.
Yeah. There's a restaurant as well. I think there's a restaurant in Aberdeen, so you could either buy an album or like a reservation for two.
Oh, fair enough. Either's good. Brilliant. And Kate, you're the front lady for the band Charm.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Which is just a different kind of mix up with obviously Andy included as well, and a lot of Andy's songs are played by Charm too. So everything is kind of interconnected. Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Charm's the kind of jazz version.
Yeah. We sort of said folky jazz, didn't we? And we're more kind of like jazzy now.
Yeah, Silver Darlings is folk jazz.
Yeah.
Charm is jazz folk.
Yeah. Actually,
Variation on a theme.
Massively different.
yeah.
Great.
Subtly different. Yeah.
Oh, that was lovely. And it just, I suppose every time we do one of these, or when you hear anything, you're kind of thinking, oh, I can't wait to get back and hear some live music. Have you got anything in the pipeline for post June 21st, or how's it looking at the moment for you both?
We've got a wedding that's been cancelled several times, not because of not our fault, it's someone else's wedding. And we're playing Whitwell Festival in September, which is always a really lovely. It's not a massive festival, it's a really lovely one. And for me, I've got some more one-to-one stuff, which is like one song sets to one person, and they'll be coming up kind of that online in April.
Okay, great, fantastic. And I presume all of that will be up on your social media and everything.
For sure, yeah. If you tune into us on Facebook at either My Stuff Andy Whitehouse or Charm, then you'll soon get hold of what we're up to. You get sick of us in no time.
Brilliant. Well, I think at the moment it's, anything other than hearing about Harry and Meghan's interview is a novelty. So
yeah, absolutely. Yes.
You're right.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That was gorgeous. It was lovely to hear some live music this evening. We really appreciate your support for Rookie Films and for Mr. Wong's Lullaby. If as and when we're in Sheffield, we'll check you out. And I hope I've put up your Bandcamp links and social media links on the comments as well. So
fabulous. Thank you.
I encourage everyone to go and check out Andy and Kate and the Silver Darlings and Charm for some jazz folk jazz fusion or a restaurant reservation. You find first on your Google search.
Well, good luck with the film, Claire. It's a lovely project, and we really hope it works out well. We'll be keeping an eye.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. See you at the red carpet premiere.
Better believe it.
Take care, guys. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, folks.
Okay, so that was Andy Whitehouse and Kate Trott. Gorgeous music. So please do go and check them out if you can. They do some lovely work, and they're on Bandcamp, and hopefully someday soon in real life as well. If you're in the Sheffield vicinity, or if you follow them on social media, you'll find out where they're playing. So thanks again for that. So as you all know, and as mentioned at the beginning, or if you're watching this or tuning in a bit late, this is part of our campaign for the fundraiser for Mr. Wong's Lullaby, which is a short film, Sheffield-based film that we are hoping to film and shoot in the next couple of months. And it's a film about a woman who's caring for her elderly father who has dementia. We have partnered with a charity called TIDE, which is Together in Dementia Everyday. And I'll pop that up here. This is why I need a technician or someone to do these things for me, because I can't do it all. Right, so that's TIDE. So TIDE is Together in Dementia Everyday, and TIDE is basically the main purpose of TIDE is to promote the voices of carers, which are often unheard and under-recognised. So we're delighted to have partnered with them. We have got a brilliant guest coming up, Ray Fallan, who she works with TIDE. She is an ex-carer herself, and she's likewise been very supportive of this project of Mr. Wong's Lullaby. So we're really delighted and honoured to have her coming on this evening to talk about her experience as a carer for a loved one with dementia. Just a couple of statistics that are fairly, I think, kind of shocking, really. There are currently about 850,000 people in the UK alone with dementia, and that number is growing, expected to rise to 1.4 million within the next 20 years. 2/3 of the cost of dementia is paid by people who have dementia and their own families, and unpaid carers supporting people with dementia save, in the UK alone, save the economy 13.9 billion per year, which is huge. So I think it's worth all of our time hearing the voices of carers and giving them a platform to be heard. So without further ado, I will practice what I preach and bring Ray Fallan on, who will be talking to us. Hiya, Ray.
Hi, Claire. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Looking forward to this. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. Thanks for joining us. So Ray, I've sort of spoken a little bit about dementia. You yourself are someone who works with TIDE and who is an ex-carer. Really, it's probably better for you to tell your own story rather than me telling it on your behalf. I think an assumption a lot of people make is dementia is something that happens to very old people. It's the perception you see on TV, in ads, across the board in the media. But your scenario is completely different. Your husband's dementia started to develop when he was just 50. Can you tell us a little bit about what those early days were like and what your experience was like at that point?
Yeah, sure. When I look back now, there was definite signs when he was just turning 50 that there was something wrong. When I look back further than that now, I can actually recognise that it was perhaps a bit earlier than that. So the first thing was James was a workaholic. He was a true family guy. He loved rock music. He would do anything for the family, and I mean the whole family, our own 2 daughters, and all the nieces and nephews. So we were the go-to people. Our house was always full of kids growing up. And then all of a sudden, James's personality just changed, and I couldn't grasp it, and I couldn't work it out. I couldn't understand. There seems to be his courage had gone, if you like. And I couldn't get my head around it at all. So there was lots of things going on, and we were moving home. His mum and his brother passed away within about 6 weeks, and James and I bought his mum's house from the rest of the family, and I was quite spoiled by him, so I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even change a light bulb.
Yeah.
I wanted a big kitchen, so before I knew what it was, he had knocked down the whole back of this house and built 2 double extensions on. And he was a tradesman. He was an electrician and a builder. And suddenly he would be doing tasks that he could have done with his eyes shut, and he didn't know how to do them anymore. And so that was the real beginning. So putting up a curtain pole, he was asking me what to do. And that was astounding when he built this house, and not for the first time. So yeah, that was about the start of it, and you know, his personality changing. And he was 50 years of age. So that continued for a bit of a time, and I could see that he was really distressed about things, and he was never a stressful person. He was always really happy, the fun guy. Our house was known as the party house. So when it was having a special birthday or anything like that, everybody came to our house. So, but things were stressing him out, and that was really, really strange. And he was a pure leader. He was leading at his work. He was a leader everywhere. He was just a fun person. He was a go-to person. And we got up one morning and he burst into tears. And I said, "Oh my goodness, what's wrong?" And he said, I can't go to work today. And I was like, "What?" I mean, this is just astounding. He worked round the clock, weekends, everything. He just was a workaholic, and he helped people. And so all this came spinning out his mouth, and I went out into his works van, and it was covered in yellow Post-its with instructions to himself. And I was astounded. I was absolutely astounded. So we took a trip to the GP, and she said, "Yeah, James, we think you've got dementia. Don't know what kind you've got, but you've got a dementia, I'm sure." So that was when the journey began, really. So we waited about 6 months to get an appointment with a psychiatrist. It was at first, because they were a bit concerned perhaps that losing his mum and his brother in such a short space of time was having an effect on him. But I just knew it wasn't. There was too much happening. I didn't know at that time that it was a dementia, but I knew there was something way wrong. That went on for 2 years. So that 2 years, there was a huge decline in James in every way, cognitively and physically. And I started to do my own research because I wasn't getting anywhere. And I worked in pharmaceuticals and had lots of friends that, had knowledge and stuff like that. So I started to look myself and really researching, and my daughters as well. And I came up with Pick's disease, which is now known as frontotemporal lobe dementia, which is all about personality changing, but it didn't explain the physical changes that James was having. So he had very early on developed a tremor in his hand.
Right.
And we couldn't understand that. So 2 years went past, and then he couldn't use the arm at all. He was dragging a leg. He was beginning to stoop over to the one side. And I phoned the psychiatrist to say, I want to speak to you. And he wouldn't speak to me because of confidentiality reasons. However, I went along to the next appointment, and James was now taking tics and body twitches and all that kind of stuff. And he almost fell off the chair in that psychiatrist's surgery that day. So I asked him what was that, and he said medication. And I just put my foot down then and I said, I'm not having this anymore. And James referred to somewhere else. So that journey began, and eventually it took 5 years for a diagnosis. Although I had said that he had something else as well as front to temporal lobe. And when we eventually seen a neuropsychologist, he agreed that there was a dementia there, but something else going on. Oh, gosh, it just goes on and on and on. And eventually, unfortunately and very sadly, without under-medicated, not diagnosed in any way and deteriorating rapidly, he was eventually sectioned for 8 months. And it was during the time he was sectioned, about 8 weeks before he was released, that, and I'm calling it release because it is detention, that we finally got a primary diagnosis of CBD, which is cortical basal degeneration, which I had been saying to professionals for almost 3 years. So that's primarily about muscle wastage and stiffness, and it can start anywhere in your body, a foot or a hand, and then eventually it travels around the whole body. So yeah, you can't use your limbs, you know, you've got no balance, you've got no coordination, it affects your sight, speech, everything. So after James got out of hospital, within about 2 weeks, he lost mobility altogether. He was now just getting into the 6 years of being ill, and he died, out of hospital in the June, and he died in the February.
Wow. Gosh. So it was sort of a very, I mean, 6 years is a long time, but also a very short time to degenerate in that way, from being so healthy and active and having a normal life to totally having the rug pulled from under you like that.
Yeah. And he was very healthy. He had 7 brothers and sisters who naturally all had, you know, chicken pox or measles or whatever it was, but James never took it. He never had anything. So he never lost a day at work. He broke his heels and went to work with stookies on or plasters on his inside. He just would not. So, you know, when he had to give up work, and he was forced to give up work, he was absolutely devastated, completely devastated. And of course, capacity was gone, so he had no understanding why he couldn't go to work any longer. And that was really tough for him. It was really tough for him, you know, and without a diagnosis, and he was dangerous driving, that I would have to hide keys and take spare keys to my work because I was still working. I was trying to hold everything together at that point, trying to do a job, look after James, trying to get a diagnosis. Yeah, it was, and I believe these rare dementias, when you're young, if you take them when you're young, then it is a fast decline and it's very rapid.
Yeah, really aggressive. Gosh.
Yeah.
And Ray, aside from the struggle to get a diagnosis, a proper diagnosis, and get proper care for your husband, what was your experience like as a carer? What sort of challenges did you face as a carer?
It was magnanimous. It was huge. You just don't realise that at the time when you're under 65, you don't get any personal care support. So getting any support was extremely difficult. First of all, because it took so long for the diagnosis, and I had joined groups at that point, and everybody seemed to be, I wouldn't say flourishing, but they were all supported and they were having packages put in place. But without us having anything like that, there was nothing. So I used to have to get James up in the morning, help him at getting dressed at that point, because he was losing all the coordination. So that deteriorated before he could dress himself. But then I had to lay clothes out in the bed in the direction you put them on, if you like. But then you couldn't work buttons or zips, so I would have to get up and get him washed and get him dressed, sort myself out, make him a packed lunch, try to write things down, because by that time he couldn't work a phone and he couldn't work a remote control. So basically he spent his days watching the birds and feeding the birds in the garden, you know, which he loved, but it wasn't fulfilling for him at all. It was extremely frustrating for him. And that frustration comes back to the person that's caring. As soon as you walk in the door, you know, and the personality changes with front to temporal lobe, it affects your behaviour. I was just a target, and so it made it really, really, really difficult. And in between all that, trying to go to work, I was trying to fight to get services put in place. And you know, when I started the journey, when I knew myself it was dementia, I thought everything would just fall into place and all the care would just come along, and you know, it would never have been the journey that it was. But I was completely wrong. I had to fight for absolutely everything, and I don't think yet that I was successful at that, and therefore that left me with a lot of guilt. But yeah, and I still have that guilt yet. But everything falls on the carer's shoulders. So as the person declines with these type of diseases, your caring role naturally goes up, but you don't even notice. So, you know, the scales tip. So before you just take on more and more and more while trying to, you know, earn a living to keep your mortgage going. You've just bought a house, you know, 2 daughters getting married. The pressure was absolutely immense.
Gosh, wow. But you said that the weddings did happen, and you told me the stories of those, which was really, I mean, you know, it's great, even though it might not have been quite as you would have imagined. It's amazing that as a family you managed to pull together and make that happen.
Yeah, it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. My eldest daughter was the first to get married, 8 weeks notice. Now James was still pretty well cognitively at that point, so he was really, you know, excited, and it was in a place called South Queensferry, you know, where all the bridges are. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So we had, you know, it was just a wonderful day, and it was great. James was able to walk our oldest daughter down the aisle. And it was New Year's Day as well. So I'm sorry, the 2nd of January. So it was all systems go, but it was wonderful, and it's great memories. My youngest daughter was getting married, and I could see that, you know, James coming out of the hospital and really declining, and we had a conversation about her bringing our wedding forward, so that our dad would be there. There was no guarantee if they didn't bring it forward that he wouldn't be there. So that was a difficult conversation, and I'm sure it was even more difficult for my daughter, you know. So we did that. But of course, James couldn't be walking this time, so he lost his mobility so quickly, and she was getting married in September, so there was no ramp or anything put in. There was about 7 steps up into the house. So they've given us this climbing wheelchair, and I'm 4'10". You know, and the wheelchairs are really, really tall, so yeah, there was no wedding. We'd never have got him into a car of any kind. There was no way that could have happened. And with cortical basal degeneration, you're in a lot of pain because it's muscle stiffness. So if you try to move anything, so there was just no way we'd have got him into a car. So we went to our local community centre, and they had minibuses with wheelchair access. So we all went to the wedding in the minibus, including the bride. It was great.
The new party bus.
Yeah, and we did. We had it all decorated, and you know, she was getting married in church, but we changed that to get married in the venue so that we didn't have to go from one place to the other. He obviously couldn't walk our youngest daughter down the aisle, but we walked down the aisle. She walked down the aisle with him in the chair. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, to be honest. But you know, the happy memories looking back on that as well, that he got there. And we spoke about the wedding often as it was approaching. I don't think he really got it until the morning of the wedding when she came down the stairs in her wedding dress. So that was a moment we'll never forget.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. You have to cherish those happy memories, don't you?
Yeah.
As much as you can. And something I spoke to you about, Ray, as well, which, I mean, it was certainly very important to us with the film, is, you know, keeping a bit of humor and a bit of levity. And, you know, there are funny things that happen, you know, and there are those moments where if you didn't laugh, you cry. And you told me a very funny story about taking James to Marks and Spencer's to get some trousers. Which, I don't know if you feel like you want to share that or not.
Yeah, I hope my girls aren't listening, but anyway. Yeah, his coordination was gone, he couldn't use his fingers properly, etc., etc. And he was a rocker. So, I mean, he liked his ripped T-shirts and AC/DC and Whitesnake and ripped jeans and trainers and stuff like that. So to get James into trousers, it had to be a special day, like a wedding or a christening. But as soon as the important bits of bathroom, past the ties were off and the sleeves were rolled up. Anyway, he couldn't, to keep him independent, he couldn't work his jeans anymore. So I thought I need to take him for trousers. And I thought, oh, he'll hate these. He'll just hate it. So off we went. We took a trip to Marks and Spencer's. And then I realised I was going to have to go in to the male dressing rooms because he couldn't do it himself. So I poked my head in like this and there was nobody there. And by luck, there was a disabled cubicle, but just had a curtain across it. And James is cognitively declining as well at this point, so not really understanding what was going on. And I said, take your trousers off. And he's like, in here? You want, take them off in here? And I was like, we're buying new trousers. We need to put your trousers on. And he just wasn't having any of it. So I was on my knees actually. And of course the curtain's about 10 inches off the floor and I'm on my knees, trying to unbuckle his belt. And he's going, oh, for goodness sake, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he was really freaking out about it. And that kind of conversation went on until I got the new trousers tried on. And of course, then I had to get them back off him. And he's like, you're going to do this to me again? And it was like, I was like, oh my goodness. But I wasn't thinking beyond the curtain. Of course, when I opened the curtain, there was a queue. Men waiting to get in. And the looks we got were quite phenomenal. So, yeah, we both did it on.
I'm sure Marks and Spencer's have never had an incident like that before. God, amazing.
Oh, I laughed. I mean, I remember as I said earlier, I'm tiny, so James always came to the food shop with me. He was such a gentleman. I never carried a shopping bag in my life. So, and I couldn't reach the bigger shelves anyway, so he always came with me. And we got to the checkout this day, and he was trying to empty the trolley to put on the conveyor belt, and he lost his bearings, and he all of a sudden started to empty the trolley behind us in the queue, and there was a French stick in it, so he picked it up and ate it. The woman's face was like pure horrified. So I just laughed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have to laugh. I mean, it's what else can you do at those moments, you know?
Laugh and treasure the moments that you have that laugh in. You know?
Yeah,
it's funny himself. I remember this day. We had quite a big bedroom, so the bottom wall was all glass mirrored, and it was from wall to wall. And James didn't see that as a mirror, so he thought he was walking into another room. He walked straight into the glass and went. He burst out laughing, and he went, "Fucking idiot!" And he laughed at himself. So there was many moments like that.
Oh, great! Fantastic. Well, he sounds like an amazing person, and it sounds like you, against all the odds, did everything you could to be there for him and to give him his dignity and the kindness deserved. So. Ray, obviously you had your 6-year journey as a carer for James, and then came to the end, and what you've ended up doing is totally changing from what your past life was and giving up your old job to fully involve yourself and immerse yourself in the world of caring and being an advocate. And how did that come about? What prompted you to make that leap?
I was busy researching about the disease and, you know, trying to find some support for myself with rare diseases, etc. And it was really difficult. It was just really difficult. And I had joined some groups, but I felt I just didn't fit in. I just felt different, and it was different. The other people that we had paired up with were still, you know, living well and able to function, but we just weren't at that point at all. And it was just such a different situation. And I just didn't, I mean, we're still good friends and all that stuff, but I just didn't feel I belonged, you know. So I began to search out something else. And I came across TIDE, I think it was 2017. They weren't even in Scotland by then, but I read about them and I joined immediately as a member. And lo and behold, they came to Scotland quite quickly after that. And I became a very active member of TIDE. So they gave me a voice, which was great. I didn't have that anywhere else. They gave me the voice where people would listen And I just felt that people had to listen, not just about me and James or our daughters, about the whole situation and how desperate it was for people out there to get help, support, people's needs and outcomes to be met, including carers. Because nobody listened. You know, you don't wear a badge that says you're qualified. So, and I hated the fact that I was being called carer at that point and not James's wife. How did that change? You know, and I just hated that. Anyway, I became really, really active with TIDE, who gave me this voice, and I began to do some public speaking, small at first, and then they got bigger and bigger and bigger until we ended up in Chicago at the Alzheimer's Disease International. And I also began to speak in Parliament at cross-party groups, where I wasn't shy at all about sitting around that table and raising issues about people's rights with dementia, about carers' rights, about policies and strategies, and I was quite vocal. I was vocal socially on social media, and I just got really, really, really involved. I don't know what I'd done without TIDE to be able to do that, because it really was cathartic as well, because I'd nobody else in the same situation to talk about these rare diseases. I didn't know anybody else at that point that had them. And that became really a lifeline for me. It was incredible. And, you know, once you got so much of that, what you were feeling, your feelings are deep inside, and you're really scared to talk about it because nobody understands. But TIDE gave me that opportunity. So that was quite healing. And after my husband passed away in 2018, I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? But TIDE did not leave me there, because they support former carers too. And so I continued since 2018 to be an active member as a former carer. So I've did lots of stuff, making videos, TV programmes, newspapers, anything, because I want to raise awareness about this, about people with dementia and their rights, and most of all about carers getting the support they need if they want to keep their loved one at home or transitioning into care homes, whatever it may be. I want to make sure that people don't have a difficult journey that they don't need to have. It will never be easy. However, there is support there. So I continued with that. Changed my career. He actually died on Valentine's Day in 2018. And I had been off my work for a year caring for him. And I thought, I'll go back to work now. And that was not a sensible thing to do 4 weeks after your husband passes away. But I was distraught, and I wasn't thinking clearly. So off I went to work, and never told MD I was coming back. And when I got to the roundabout, I drove round it, and I drove round it, and I drove round it, and I thought, what's wrong with me? Why can't I go in here? So I went in, and, you know, it was a great job. I loved it. And, you know, I just knew it wasn't right. I just knew it wasn't right. And I finished that day and never went back. I didn't even start the shift. I just went, I can't do this. There's, you know, my manager was absolutely brilliant. Sit down, chill out, what you doing here? You don't make these rash decisions. And but I had something new. And people were saying, you don't change jobs, you don't change houses, you don't do this after a bereavement. I did it all. Yeah. I did it all, rightly or wrongly. I did it, but I just knew it wasn't right. And so I left, and I had no job, and I had not a clue what I was going to do. And a job just came along within 4 weeks in dementia. So off I went, and I became a dementia advisor in the community, running projects. So I didn't know MD when I started this job, and within about a year, we were supporting between 80 and 100 people in a week at different events, and that was people with dementia and their carers. Loved it. And then COVID came along. So yeah, that was absolutely superb. And then when COVID came along, I thought, what am I going to do now? You know, so for the first time since 2012, when my husband took sick, I took some time for me, and I didn't work for 6 months, but I knew that I was using avoidance to not deal with my feelings, because I'd been silent so much that you suppress things. So I kept a lid on it, and I pretended everything was normal. So I took that 6 months to try and face what I had to face. I even went for counselling, and I've yet to speak to the counsellor about what I was going through. Couldn't do it. But that was I don't know why, people say, what are you crying for? Your husband's still there. But every day you lose a part of them. It's devastating. So you're grieving while they're alive.
Yeah, they do say that with dementia, don't they? It's you're bereft twice. The first with the
awful.
diagnosis, and
and through TIDE we now have a living grief and bereavement programme where it supports many people that feels that, and you can see light bulbs going on in people's head. Ding, ding, ding. Well, that's why I feel that. So we will give them support through that and give them validation that is what's happening to them, and it's okay to be sad. And that's such a help. And it's not about death, it's about acknowledging and validating how people are feeling. People go to the doctors and they get prescribed antidepressants. When they're not depressed, they're grieving. There's a big difference, and that's about education.
Absolutely. It's so important. And you're so right, validating someone's feelings so that they don't feel like they're crazy. They don't feel like they need to be drugged up or they need to be avoiding or suppressing them, that they can, they can openly express them without any sort of social shame around it. And it's so often, it's the old question, who cares for the carer? And often, just
TIDE.
Everything, the emotion. Yeah, well, TIDE, thank God for TIDE. Yeah. Yeah. But it's I'm glad to hear that you did take some time out for the first time in a long time for you. Because I can only imagine how difficult that must be, because as you said before as well, there's so much sort of guilt and pressure around caring for someone, especially for a loved one, whatever your relationship with them is. It's a very complex relationship to kind of trans.
Yeah, and I didn't start working for TIDE until about October, and I just think, oh my goodness, this is it's a job in my dreams. No, I mean, I advocated for them for about 4 years before I worked for them. So, a testament that they do look after you, Wow. And without them, I wouldn't have had the education in this field that I now have, the confidence of the public speaking, or the guts to even change my career or speak out. TIDE's been phenomenal for me, and it's phenomenal for other carers as well. And it's a safe place for carers, and we give them a voice. It's a safe space, and they can say whatever they want, and nobody judges them. And it's so enlightening for carers, and they can become involved in as much or as little as they want to. They can just come onto our sessions and just listen. And if they want to go further than that, we will support them to do whatever they want. Campaign, doesn't matter. Have a look at the website. There's so much going on, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm really proud to be working for them.
Brilliant. Well, to anyone who's watching this evening or who watching back, please do go and have a look at TIDE, because they do some fantastic work, whatever stage you're at in your journey of caring, or you might know someone else who's caring for someone with dementia, and it might just be a bit of a lifeline for someone that they didn't know even existed.
The other unique thing about TIDE as well is every employee has a caring experience of someone with dementia.
Great.
And TIDE are the only company across Britain that has that. They can say, we're solely about the carer and giving them a voice. And it's a care of someone with dementia, which is specific, the USP for that. But as well as we all have experiences. But we also partnership with lots of other organisations. So we'll make referrals in, as well as being referred to. So that, it's a whole involvement network. It's amazing.
Oh, brilliant. And I think this year in particular, 2020, dare we mention dreaded lockdown, but it's highlighted so many areas in society where there's a disparity in how people are treated, whether that's, there's been statistics showing, obviously members of the BAME community have been really adversely affected, that, a lot of women have been adversely affected in their careers over the lockdown, but also, we cannot be blind to the fact that people in care homes have been treated abominably this year, and people needing care, whether that's in a care home or at home. And it's so important to highlight it, I think, because I think anything that's associated with age and being much older, it's very easy to sort of shut away and pretend it won't happen. And I think over and over we do that. We tend to sort of pretend end of life is not coming at any point.
Yeah. But I'm blown away. You're right. It's been absolutely awful for people. Absolutely awful. And we will give people who want to address that a voice as well. And there are groups out there as well, and some of the group, are members of TIDE as well, where we will host conferences and give them the voice, and inviting politicians or whoever it might be. So we're not adverse to taking on a challenge, and that it's got to be all rounded. You can't support one part of it and not support the other. And going forward, I absolutely believe that once people do get in normal visiting, there's going to be a fallout somewhere, and mental health wise, and carers will need support. Now, whether they're new carers, current carers, or former carers, they will need that support, and we recognise that, and we are getting prepared for that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because I know that it's already been discussed quite widely that people who are in care, and particularly people with dementia who haven't been allowed meaningful visits or touch with loved ones, have regressed hugely, and that's of course going to have an impact on them, but also on their carers. So it has to be addressed.
Well, it's a shock if you haven't seen your loved one for a year, and everyone knows that there's a decline, through isolation and loneliness and not just COVID-19, but just being separated from loved ones. When you eventually see your loved one again, the change in them may be so shocking, So yeah, people do need supported, and it's coming fast. And there's Facebook pages set up, and I read them daily, and we have people obviously in our groups that come on and speak about it openly, and members of staff. It's been shocking. It's been absolutely shocking. And of course, at the beginning, you kind of understand about protecting people, but a year on, I believe, and this is my personal opinion, with good infection prevention and control, and PPE, lateral flow tests, and now, of course, the vaccine. I don't understand why it can't happen. I just don't understand it. And the new guidelines have came out across the nations. Lots of care homes are now opening up, but there's a lot not. So it's continuing. It's against human rights. It's against the person. It's an extension of their home when you in a care home, and that's where you live. So I don't. And then, can you imagine someone in advanced stages of dementia sitting in a bed, looking through a door and a plastic screen? They're never going to see you. The communication's just not there. They need touch. I mean, this pandemic should never be forgotten, and what's happened to people with dementia in care homes, and also people at home as well. You get couples living at home, one of them being the carer and one of them being the person with dementia, and also the decline at home because services have either been cut or removed. And so the same thing's happening there. And I believe, and this is my personal opinion again, that there's a fear now. I've spoken to some people that I know personally that need extra help, and they won't do it because they're frightened that their loved one's going to get in a care home and they won't see them again.
Oh, God, I mean, it's desperate. It's the last thing you need. But that's why carers need help and support.
Yeah.
No, totally. And I think it's, whether you are someone who currently is affected by it, whether you're a carer or someone in your close circle has dementia, or someone in your close circle is a carer, or if you're not at all. And actually, I mean, since I've started working on this film, every second person I speak to knows someone who is affected by it. But if you're not, you can still be an ally for something like this by, being vocal about it, being tuned into what's happening. If you're on social media, you can platform people who are talking about it and who need their voice to be heard, because it's so important. And it's, you know, certainly when we were writing the film, we were conscious that these are voices that aren't heard very much because it's not trendy, it's not sexy, it's not, you know, but it's important. And I think, I think it's just something that people, more often than not, when people choose to tune out from something, it's because there's an element of fear around it. And there doesn't have to be, if society can embrace it and be more open and more supportive, it doesn't have to be a fearful thing in the way that I think it is still perceived now.
Yeah, it has to be inclusive as well. You know, just because you've got dementia doesn't mean so you can't be part of the community.
Yeah.
That's for the person with the dementia, but also the carers, you know, why not have inclusive events, you know, intergenerational, whatever it may be. I totally believe that as well. So, yeah. You know, people need a voice, and you can raise, I mean, define carer. A carer is not just someone who lives with a person caring for someone. It could be your next door neighbour when you're nipping to the shops and getting the shopping in, or a grandchild put them in, make a cup of tea. I mean, the define carer, there's so many levels of it. So, and that's something else that TIDE recognise as well. So we don't just have a primary carer, if you like, we can have whole families. So, you know, young carers that's living at home with parents with young dementia, you know, and that needs to be raised in a huge way as well, because that's there. And you spoke about numbers earlier, over 800,000 people in Britain. I'm not exactly sure of the numbers across the 4 nations, but something like 50,000 or more under 65s.
Wow.
No, there's 93,000 people in Scotland with a diagnosis of dementia. And out of that, there's over 3,500 under 65s. You know, it's just huge.
Yeah, we can't pretend it doesn't exist.
No.
Gosh.
And as communities, we can all help, you know. But it's about awareness and support.
Wow. Well, Ray, thank you so much. I'm conscious that we're going late into the night. Well, late-ish for a Tuesday. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we wrap up? Any kind of final message? Any little bit of advice you might want to give to people, or anything you might want people to have a look at or support?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a carer out there, caring for someone with dementia, and you know you don't know where to turn, or you don't know where to go for support, and it can be such a quagmire to find out, please contact us, and we're across the 4 nations, and we will support you ourselves, but also refer you into where you need to go, hints, tips, whatever it is. Please don't struggle when there's help there, and it is there. So contact us at TIDE. You'll be really looked after.
Brilliant. I've put the TIDE website up there, and you've got the at TIDE_carers as well is their social media handle, so you can check out what they're doing there and reach out. So yeah, please do, if you need support or you need information, do have a look, and actually just go and have a look at the website anyway. Ray has a brilliant YouTube video up there talking about her experience, and there's some other people up there as well. There's some beautiful poetry even from people, so do have a look. Thank you so much, Ray. It was lovely to speak to you this evening.
You too, and I wish you all the luck making the film, and I'm so proud to be taking part of it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening. We'll see you soon.
You too. Thank you.
Take care. Bye. Okay, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. We ran a little bit over this evening, but I think it was quite an important discussion to have with Ray. Just given the nature of the film, it's always so important to hear about someone's first-hand experience. And I think, you know, it's echoed in the comments. Ray's an amazing woman, and she's done some fantastic work as an advocate and as a voice for carers. Thanks again to Andy and Kate as well, who provided the beautiful music at the beginning of the evening. For anyone who's checked in late, you can always watch this back. It'll be available on YouTube and Facebook to watch back, and we'll pop the links up tomorrow. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in, and to everyone who has supported Mr. Wong's Lullaby already. Greatly appreciated. I've put our our social media handle up there. Again, it's at Mr. Wong's Lullaby. We're on Indiegogo, so if you do want to support our campaign, you can support us there, or you can support us on paypal.me/Rookie Films. So the every penny that is raised goes into making the film, and we are also going to be making a donation to TIDE as well at the end of our crowdfunding campaign. So without further ado, I will leave you all. Thanks for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening and enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be back next week, not on Tuesday. We're back on Wednesday next week because it is St. Patrick's Day. So it would be very remiss of me not to recognise the occasion. So we'll have some music, we'll have a little mini quiz, and we will also have someone showing us how to make some Irish cocktails, and we will also have someone showing us how to do some Irish face painting in case anyone fancies wearing a shamrock for the evening that's in it on your cheek or wherever. Right, before I put my foot in it or say anything silly, I'm going to sign off. Thanks everyone, and take care. Stay safe.